Hi there, my name is Scott McDonald, and today I'm going to be teaching you one of the fundamental skills of Trampwall, the Ballout. A Ballout is a front flip that takes off from your back and lands on your feet, in this case on top of a Trampwall. It's a huge milestone in anyone's Trampwall journey, and it opens the doors to a ton of variations and related skills. To learn a Ballout to the top of the Trampwall, you should be comfortable running at full height on the wall, and also be able to do a Ballout on the trampoline. Side note, for decades, this has been called a Ballout, and this has been called a porpoise. Somewhere in the last few years, the terminology has gotten a little bit garbled. I'm not entirely sure why, but in any case, this is a Ballout. Let's get back to learning the cool flippy thing. Most people learn their first Ballouts by standing on the top of the wall, jumping off and doing a half turn to their back, and then launching themselves back up top. Before we learn the trick itself, let's spend a minute to dial in this technique and make your life much easier. Feel free to map the bed of the trampoline at first, but just make sure that you can tell where the springs end and the trampoline begins, because this placement is going to matter quite a lot. Stand on the edge of the wall, jump off both feet and do a half turn to your back, but try to land so that the back of your head comes very close to the springs on the opposite side of the trampoline. This will help push you back towards the wall. If you land close to the wall, the springs underneath you are actually going to push you away from the wall. You're going to have to kick borderline vertically to try and get back on top, and you just put yourself in a much sketchier position. So even if it's counterintuitive, go far to come back. Watch the bed where you intend to put the back of your head until the last possible moment, and then complete the turn. At first, you might feel like you're further out than you actually are, because it's kind of spooky to get that close to the springs, so I recommend filming yourself from the side so you can get an objective, truthful look at what your real placement is. Rinse and repeat this process until you're in the correct place, and make sure that you're landing square on the bed as opposed to somewhat crooked or diagonal. As you land on your back, make sure the back of your head is touching the trampoline, your body should be tight and engaged as if you were about to get shoved, your knees should be bent, your hips should be bent, and you want to have your arms in front of you. Make sure your arms are not overhead or already down by your hips. Either of these is going to inhibit your ability to reach out of the bed and to initiate the flip. Lastly, make sure that you're jumping with as much force as you can. You don't want to just do this negative jump where you linearly fall into it. The whole point here is to build power. So again, I recommend filming yourself so you can see, are you actually jumping or are you just kind of off the edge? In a regular Ballout on trampoline, you want to just go straight up and down. In a Trampwall Ballout, you need to deliberately eject yourself off the side of the trampoline and go up and over the top of a tramp wall. With that in mind, before we start worrying about doing a front flip, you need to get used to this trajectory. The following drills are applicable no matter what height your wall is, but if you have the available equipment, I recommend starting with a mat on the frame, then a box or two, then a low wall, and eventually a taller wall. If you don't have access to all that, then just use whatever's available, but the more gradually you can progress the height and power in this, the comfier and safer the whole process will be. The first thing you're going to do is mat your takeoff and landing surface, stand on it, and do that setup we just learned. As you land on your back, shift your gaze to the top of the wall and look where you need to go. You don't want to aim directly for the edge, because the whole idea is to go over the edge. Deliberately hold your feet up slightly longer than you might think you need to as you leave the bed and when you're in the air. Drill this until it becomes comfortable and consistent and you're landing far in from the edge of the wall. Make sure that you're reaching forward with everything, not just your legs, but also your chest, your shoulders, and your hands. I don't recommend moving on until you can consistently do this drill with full power. Next, do the same setup, and then depending on what you're more comfortable with, either try and catch in a handstand or a dive roll. Either way, you're going to wind up doing a dive roll sooner or later, so if that's more comfortable now, just go straight for that. Once the dive roll feels good, without rushing, without changing your setup, without really doing anything differently, try to skip catching with your hands and rotate over to your back. If doing this is a little scary at first, you can make it a little less spooky and take some guesswork out by looking for the wall over one shoulder. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but we're just looking for functionality here. You can always square up your head later. Once you can consistently take this to your back, try and go just a little further and land on your butt. At this point, you're pretty much already there. If you can land on your butt 10 out of 10 times and it's no longer completely terrifying, all you really have to do is just land on your feet. Depending on how you've been going about these drills where you slightly under-rotate, this could mean either holding on a fraction of a second longer, flipping slightly more aggressively, or even just adding a little bit more power and height as you jump off the top. Don't change anything fundamental, just make one or two of these tiny minor little adjustments and you will have a brand new shiny ball out to add to your bag of tricks. So now that you've started actually flipping, you might be wondering, what is the ideal flip timing relative to the wall? Do you want to flip on the way up so the back of your head passes underneath the corner, or do you want to set so that you come over the top and then flip? It's subjective. For the sake of learning the trick in the first place, I feel that it's much safer to learn with a longer set. With the early flip, if you mess up the timing and you rush, you run the risk of blasting into the corner of the wall, and that's not going to be a good time. With the later flip, if you just don't flip early enough, you don't flip. No big deal. It might look lame, but it's not dangerous. I think you should always try and be as safe as possible, and then change it however you want once you're comfortable with the trick. For a long time, I was terrified of ball outs, and if you don't train them progressively or consistently, this could also be you. Fear is what tends to make you rush, mess up your trajectory, drop your arms, drop your legs, and generally do any of the negative habits that are going to affect your ball out. If you kick too vertically or you land too close to the wall, as I said earlier, you're going to probably put yourself into a very sketchy, precarious position. If you do find yourself in this rather unfortunate place, I recommend trying to find the wall with your eyes, and also try to stagger your feet slightly, because then you can hedge your bets. If everything goes well, you'll land with one foot on top and one foot on the face, and then you can safely drop back in. If you feel like you're already starting to fall before you initiate the flip, that's not going to go well for you. If you kick out too late, you're going to over-rotate forwards. If you kick out too early, you might not complete the flip and land, or you might land but fall backwards onto the trampoline. Ball outs are one of those magical gateway skills on wall that just unlock a plethora of new variations and tricks. So let's take a look at some of those. As with virtually any other flip, if you can tuck it, you can also pike it or lay it out. You can also land with your feet together or stagger them and step out. You can also do a step ball out, or you can over-rotate into a 1 and 3. Even though a Barani ball out is technically a variation, for most people it's actually less scary than your standard front flipping ball out, because you can watch the wall from the moment you take off till the moment you land. Twisting ball outs are not limited to Baranis by any means. You can do a side flip ball out, a full, a Rudy, a double full, a Randy, a triple full, an Adolf. Whatever you want to do, it's out there. You can do a half out ball out. Everything is possible. As these skills get bigger though, you're going to want to use some kind of setup to build more power than you could get just jumping off the top of the wall. In most cases, a hop, a 1 and 3, or a swan dive. If you don't have any of those skills, or you just don't feel comfortable with it, you can also cheat this method by putting a block on top of the wall and then jumping diagonally off it to return to the regular ledge. This is by no means a complete list, but I think that's enough stuff to try for the time being. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Please let me know in the comments section if you have any questions or requests. As always, please like, share, subscribe, and if you want to, check out my Instagram at Scott A. McDonald. Happy training. Bye!